How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Weekly podcast here with the Iowa State Daily. As always, I'll be your host, Brett Twelmeyer, and I'll have my co-hosts introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? Assistant Sports Editor Pavel Markovic back with you with another pod.
Sports reporter, Caden Storm.
So, Iowa State lost its second straight game of the season. Cyclones are now 7-2. They fell out of the rankings after just a bad day of football. Kansas takes the win 45-36. They looked to be in control pretty much the entire game. Iowa State fought back late, but it was just too late. We had a good time there, Pavel and I did, but game-wise, it was not good for the Cyclones.
Yeah, just talking about the experience of being at Arrowhead, to bring some positivity to this game, because obviously it did not end up as in favor of the Cyclones, but still obviously visiting Arrowhead, I know, although I'm not a Chiefs fan, neither are you, but still it was really cool to see that stadium being able to walk on that field, covered game just at an NFL stadium. It's a surreal experience that I'll never forget, but still jumping back into this game, one of the things that we thought going into is what usually happens. Kansas started out with the ball. We thought they were going to score, but ended up not. And Iowa State ended up scoring their first drive, so they had the early 7-0 lead, but apparently that wasn't the solution to what happened against Texas Tech, where they ended up losing, and saw the rest of this game, just Kansas dominated throughout their way.
Yeah, so stadium-wise, I'll say it was really cool. I've been to Arrowhead before, but as a fan, so it was a really cool experience to go there to cover a football game, especially a college football game for the school that we go to. So that was really neat. But, yeah, like you're saying, Kansas doesn't score on that opening drive, and that's been something that Iowa State has struggled at in the past 4 games leading up to this one, was giving up touchdowns in the first drive of the game. But they stopped Kansas. It was mostly because they added a 4th lineman for the majority of that drive, and after that they go back to the 3-3-5, just the 3-down lineman, and Kansas scored on the next 6 possessions. So that kind of did Iowa State in at that point.
Yeah, and even like you said, that defensive adjustment, you think it'd work in hindsight, but ended up not. And so Kansas took advantage of that. We were coming in saying in this pod that Kansas probably their record was very deceiving. 2-6, now they're 3-6, obviously. Still trying to have to win out and try to make a bowl game, but nonetheless, we thought Jalen Daniels was going to look very rough against the Iowa State secondary. He ended up looking pretty decent, completing half his passes for 295 yards and 2 touchdown passes, and got it done in the run game too. So just overall dominance by that Kansas offense, and on the defensive side too, a little bit, at least in the first half.
Yeah, this Iowa State defense was cooked.
Yeah.
Guys just running wide open. I was watching from my couch, so I guess maybe I didn't see the full picture of what was going on the defensive side of the ball, but every time I looked up from the couch, it was a Kansas player running wide open past the defense, and it never felt like – the defense didn't show up until the final, 2 meaningful drives of the game. Did not show up whatsoever outside of the first drive. I think the defense falling apart, and obviously injuries are just keep stacking up. It's brutal, but the defense falling apart is definitely the story of this game.
Yeah. And it kind of just started with that second Kansas drive. 2 plays, they have that 70-yard touchdown pass, score in less than a minute, and at that point I was kind of thinking, well, maybe it was just a missed coverage or something, or just a missed assignment, just something probably went wrong on the play, but then Kansas does it later in the game with another huge pass play, and they had a few more that were pretty big chunks of yardage. So I don't really know what went wrong with the defense, but
everything.
Well, yeah,
basically, yeah.
I don't know where it really stemmed from, to be honest. The passing defense has been strong all year. They're in the top 10 nationally. Rushing wise, I figured they'd have a bad day because bottom 100 in the country when it comes to rushing defense. But Jalen Daniels had struggled, it felt like, in weeks prior to this game, throwing the football. Completion percentage-wise, he wasn't great, but yardage-wise, exploiting the defense, he was really good. He threw 2 touchdowns, didn't have a pick in this one. So he was definitely efficient when he needed to be when he threw the football.
Yeah, even on the ground, too. He had 12 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown. We were talking about another dual-threat quarterback that Iowa State had to face on top of Devin Neal, who's already a very good running back. It's third straight week with a powerful running back.
Yeah.
And each one of them has gone for at least 100 yards on the ground. So, it's kind of expected, this Iowa State rushing defense. I know, obviously, you talked about the injuries. very crucial problem, very huge, obviously, because of they haven't been able to stack that experience against these really good runners. And, yeah, it was kind of a snowball effect, just kept rolling all the way down the hill until finally ended their hopes of trying to come back in this game.
Yeah, there was no resistance at all on the defensive side of the ball. Even when you get down to the end of the game, after they've made a couple stops, so maybe you think, hey, maybe we got some life here. I didn't really have that much confidence that they'd stop them a third time, because we just didn't see that all game, and obviously it didn't even matter because Rocco Beck threw that pick six at the end. But there's just no faith whatsoever that if Kansas had to run their actual offense trying to get first down instead of just trying to run out the clock, that they were going to be able to pull off the stop.
Yeah, and the pick kind of came in a point in the game where I figured it was going to be over. I mean, Iowa State trailed by like 18 points. They trailed
31-13 at some point.
Yeah, they actually trailed by 25 at the most, which is insane that they came back by that much. Yeah, 38-13 was the biggest margin of a lead that Kansas held. So again, they just kind of turned things on way too late. They just needed that push earlier in the game. It just didn't happen in time. But again, I thought coming into this game that maybe it would have been roles reversed where Kansas is in a position where they have to throw the football late in the game. Daniels makes a mistake. This time, Iowa State was the team that was forced to throw the football late. Beck throws that pick six, and at that point, you just knew it was over at that point. So it was definitely a crushing blow when it happened because, I mean, with around like 6-7 minutes to go, you think that being down 10, there's still some hope there. But when that happened, like, all hope was lost. But it just felt like that all day.
Yeah, it was more like a too little, too late situation,
right,
like you said.
Right.
Like, I feel like one of the Iowa State's kind of confidence going, like, in the second half was from that missed field goal, like that chip shot field goal that Tabor Allen missed. I remember how many yards was that? Like 30. Yeah, he missed a chip shot 30-yard field goal, and I feel like that kind of gave the Iowa State offense kind of confidence to try and come back because I think at that point that's when they were chilling the most or not the most, saying 18 points still, but like, they scored a touchdown on the next drive, the Jalen Jackson touchdown. That was kind of quick for the Iowa State offense, like less than 2 minutes, and then obviously the Iowa State defense started to pick it up, and they forced them to punt, and then I see the pick six to Mello Dotson, which he did it to Rocco Beck this past Saturday, and he did it last season to Rocco Beck when he was in Ames. So, Mello Dotson's kind of got Rocco Beck's name towards him just because of those two pick sixes, but still, yeah, I feel like just that pick six kind of killed the drivers, regardless of them scoring a late touchdown like to end the game.
But let's not really shy away from like that one pick six that Beck had. I mean, before that, he was pretty solid.
Yeah.
He finished his day 24 of 37 passing, 383 yards, 3 touchdowns. And with those touchdowns this week, he now has 13 games in a row with a passing touchdown, which breaks the school record previously held by Brock Purdy at 12 games. So Beck has proven that even though they're, in the midst of a bit of a skid right now, he can still push the ball down the field, he can find his playmakers, and he can score. And 2 of those touchdown passes were to the hometown boy for this one, Jalen Knoll. Huge day for him. I was excited for him. With the 2 touchdowns, he had 8 catches, 167 yards. Big day from Jalen Knoll.
Yeah, it was so good to see him perform where he kind of said during the press conference during the week before they head to Kansas City, he was like, this is the team he grew up watching, the Chiefs going to games at Arrowhead to watch his team, and now getting to see what he got to do in his hometown is especially, man. You always like to see the hometown guys go back to their hometown and really show out, and that's what Knoll did on Saturday.
Yeah, the offense, I mean, they hit a lull kind of in like the middle part of the game, but they turned it on. I don't know how much that has to do with the Kansas defense maybe backing off a little bit with the big lead. But, I mean, Beck was making big throws when they had to be made. And, I mean, he was able to drive Iowa State right down the field right when they needed to fast. And, I mean, and then you're setting up for that just down 10. Who knows? There's still like, what, 5-ish minutes left maybe, 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
And up until that, the last few drives have been so money. He was perfect. And then, unfortunately, like you said, Mello just has his number, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And Yeah, and I feel like one of those, like, I know we keep talking, like, Beck did play a good game, but one of those thorn in my sides type of plays was, remember the overthrew Steve O'Klotz in the end zone?
Yeah.
That was the one that could have been, a crucial
Wide
turning point. Yeah.
open.
It was, me and Brett sitting up there in the press box, like, seeing him, like, he was preparing to throw it, like, 30 yards deep. It looked like he would sling that ball, but instead
that just resulted in a field goal, right?
Yeah, because the score was 21-7 prior to that field goal, and it would have been a touchdown game if they actually converted, because they were at the Kansas 4, so you'd think you'd be able to score a second and goal when that happened, and then obviously missed the throw to Knoll, which, that out route play doesn't always work at times. So, and then obviously Conradi hit the 22-yard chip shot field goal, but you saw that's one of the biggest missed opportunities I've saved from the game from Rocco Becht, along with the interception, obviously, but still, I think he still played a phenomenal game nonetheless.
And that's a big swing in points, too.
Yeah.
When you miss that opportunity for a touchdown and have to settle for 3, that's 4 points off the board right there. Especially, that would have been huge, especially in the first half where they were struggling to move the football, and they got it right down to the goal line, but just were unable to finish that one off.
A big swing in vibes, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That would have been the momentum. Like, maybe they wouldn't have allowed that touchdown drive the Iowa State defense just because, they went down the field and scored to increase the lead to 18 points. So I feel like the whole shift of the game right there kind of happened from that overthrown pass.
Yeah. Klotz did finish with 1 catch for 28 yards. He was one of many Cyclones to catch a pass, but again, it was Nolan Higgins who had the brunt of the work in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Noel with his 8 catches. Higgins had 7. And then everybody else, besides Gabe Burkle, had 1 catch. Burkle had 2 catches. But, I mean, Steve O'Klotz, Jalen Jackson, Carson Hansen, Carson Brown, Tyler Moore, Eli Green, and even Dominic Overby all caught passes, a pass in this game. So
Overby had that big third down catch.
He did, yeah.
When
First
Higgins,
catch of the
I think
season.
Higgins came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's starting to spread the ball around a little bit more, but it's just still that lack of production from everybody besides Nolan Higgins. That's still a little alarming, but I mean,
it's
it's
9
expected,
games in,
right?
yeah.
They're not going to change anything.
No.
Yeah, and I feel like one of those problems, I know the passing game was efficient on Saturday. Look at the running game, only 78 yards net running with the Carson Hansen run being the 1 touchdown. So, yeah, I obviously expect to have a bigger boost in the rushing game, but I guess Kansas' defense was prepared for that Iowa State rushing attack. And, Hansen led the way with 8 carries, 48 yards, and then it was a boo, 5 for 20, and then Jalen Jackson only had 2 carries for 2 yards. It seems like he's getting less of the workload right now compared to Hansen and Sama. I mean, I guess it is warranted because Hansen obviously has been, I'd say, lead back of this 3-man group right now. And then Sama, these past 2 games, has been playing better. And then just unfortunate that Jalen Jackson's getting less work in.
In that running game, when you fall down early in the game, that running game is just gonna slow down because they had to drop back and throw pretty much the whole second half. So, yeah, Jalen Jackson definitely has taken more of a back seat. You've started to notice that kind of, even when Hansen's been dealing with some injuries, like some little nagging injuries, it's still been kind of Jackson falling back. So I think that's kind of odd to me how that ended up shaking out. I don't know, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I guess Kansas just schemed it up pretty well, held everybody in check. This
Just
rushing,
a bad game.
Yeah. It felt like one of the early season games where, like North Dakota, running game just did not get established at all. The rushing defense, still, there's this discrepancy of the passing numbers are much, much better than the rushing numbers on both sides of the ball. This game was evident of that, except this was just an odd game for the Iowa State secondary, it felt like. I'm wondering if it's just fatigue that's setting in, if it's the slew of injuries. I know there's a lot of younger guys on this team that have been asked to step up and play more than originally anticipated. I'm wondering if that has something to do with this skid. Because, again, you look at Kansas, like they have so many guys who are like 5th year, 6th year seniors that have played Iowa State many times before. They've seen this offense, a lot of these guys last year. So I'm wondering if that was maybe something that went into it. And like you were saying, Pavle, definitely that 2-6 record that they showed was, I think they're probably still the best 6-loss team in the country.
Oh, 100%. There's no way it couldn't be just what you talked about, all that experience. Like, there's no way that, I mean, like we kind of like previewed into the game, they kind of like lost most of their games just because of the late turnovers and like, late scores from the other team. So that's what kind of dug them in this season, because Kansas was expected to be one of those, I want to say the top teams in the Big 12, but like, it's like
right
above
there.
the mid level.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, unfortunate for their team, but luckily, they still got their get back. It's probably like this is probably the confidence boosting win they needed to finish out their season, because I still think they have to play like BYU and Colorado.
Yeah,
So
I was just gonna say they have the chance to ruin some other people's season.
yeah,
Yep.
it's like BYU, Colorado, and Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it's kind of a gauntlet right there, but still like.
And they have to win out to make a bowl game still.
Yeah, and I don't know if 5 wins is possible, but still,
They could if
They could
they
cause
get,
some chaos if they beat BYU and Colorado.
Yeah,
Then
BYU
all of a sudden
almost-
the Cyclones are back in it.
if Iowa State starts to win
if
again.
they can, if they can
That's
win games.
the main thing right there.
Yeah.
yeah, BYU almost lost this weekend, but unfortunately didn't to Utah. But
BYU only 2.5 point favorites over Kansas at home.
interesting, yeah.
So
Well-
they're saying that's like a toss-up game at a neutral site.
Is it a night game for BYU?
Yes, late game, 9:15.
That makes sense.
Big 12
they always
after
play at
dark.
night.
BYU's pretty good in those nighttime games, but I remember one last year where they lost.
Yeah, that was a
Wonder
great game.
who they played in that one.
Yeah, I wonder which running back did the face and kind of dominated them, but
Hmm.
nonetheless,
Makes you
Iowa
think.
State. Yeah, nonetheless, Iowa State, needs to end the skid soon, especially hopefully against Cincy, but it won't be easy against those Bearcats.
No. So we were kind of talking about this a couple of days ago, but I genuinely feel like the Cincinnati game, because of the record, the play as of recent weeks, these past 2 weeks more specifically, this has now become the most important game of the season, because Iowa State sits 7-2 right now. 10 wins is still on the table. I don't know if they're going to get there, but in terms of just keeping momentum, keeping your hopes alive for the 10 wins, for a possible, that slim chance of a Big 12 championship spot, this game you have to win almost. Because if you lose this one, I mean, that's 3 losses in a row that you're sitting with.
Yeah.
And now you've just got to dig yourself out of an even bigger hole than you're already in to try and achieve some of those goals. So a loss here, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't expect the Cyclones to win really more than 1 or 2 games the rest of the way after that. The bowl game would definitely scare me.
Yeah, depends on who we play and where we
Right.
play. Like, I feel like depending on where we play, I know Cyclone fans do travel to
Oh, yeah,
specific places, but like, maybe the opposing team also travels well, so it's kind of hard to win in a certain environment depending where we are playing. And yeah, like you mentioned, Cincinnati game is huge. At home, at night again.
Yep.
To say they haven't lost a night game here at home this season, because the only one they lost was Texas Tech, and that's at a 2:30 start time. So, I like to say that they have the advantage here just because it's a night game. Jack Trice Stadium should be popping just because of the fact that is a home game. Have more home games in this year than they do away games this year. So I feel like it's going to be a good environment. Hopefully that gives the team a confidence boost just going into the game. And yeah, because I feel like even though Utah is on a slide who they play next at Utah, they could still. I mean, they're still hoping for their bowl game, because they're only at 4 wins right now. So they have to go to Colorado and then host us, and they're gonna. If they lose at Colorado, they're going to want to beat us real bad. So
Yep.
This game it'll show a lot about what type of team this is, because, I mean, the loss to Texas Tech was brutal. I mean, that was heartbreaking. Then you go to Kansas City, and the final score wasn't that bad, but they got dominated. They got whooped up and down the field against a Kansas team that is better than the record, but still a 2-6 Kansas team. Now you got to come back. And they are better than Cincinnati. I believe that. I think that despite their struggles, I think they are a better team than Cincinnati. They're on their home field at night. I still think, the Iowa State fans, they always show up. The Iowa State fans are going to show up. And if they lose this game, I think things could end very, very, very poorly going down the stretch. And if they win this game, I think that could be the catalyst for a late season turnaround, even if it doesn't end up in 10 wins or a Big 12 championship berth, 9-3. Good bowl game, good momentum going into next year. You just can't. You don't want to. You see this on a maybe higher scale at Florida State, because they went 13-0, and then they had such a terrible end of the season.
Oh, my
Yeah.
And how that's carried over. I
Yep.
mean, obviously, I don't think it'd be anything that bad, but you just
Yeah.
having momentum going into the next season is a very underrated thing, I think. You
Yep.
don't want to be going down on the downhill. You want to be going back up
Especially when next season they start with a conference game against Kansas State.
right off
In
the
Ireland.
bat
In Ireland.
with
Yeah.
with the whole team back, pretty much,
Yep.
outside of the two J's, pretty much.
And that's a crucial part because you're losing both those weapons. And now what's Rocco Beck
Mhm.
going to do? Like, we've seen Carson Brown a little bit overbeat, got that one catch against Kansas this Saturday. I know you'll have his tight end still with Bramer leading the way, but still, like, it's going to be a question mark right there just from the receiving game because I know Beck will probably struggle a little bit just not having those two J's as weapons anymore.
Isn't Eli Green going to be gone next year too? I think he's a senior this year.
I believe so. He's either junior, senior, if
That
not
makes
one.
sense.
It's not
Yeah.
one more year,
Yeah.
but still. Yeah.
And he's been kind of that third or fourth receiver.
Mhm.
I mean, him and Carson Brown have kind of
Is
been going
Carson
back and
Brown
forth
wide
a bit.
receiver 1 next year?
It could
He
be.
might be
Depends on if
as
they
a
get
sophomore.
transfer portal
Transfer
or
portal, yeah.
They might have to hit the portal to get
They're
a
gonna
Oh,
have
receiver.
100%. They have to at least get one because you've seen what's happened so
Yeah.
far. With
I mean, they
Alston.
got Higgins from the portal.
Yeah.
So
And you see how, like, right off the bat, he worked off tremendously well. So
yep.
one of those, like, mid-level receivers just waiting to come up to the big leagues. So
Yeah.
got to grab him while you can. Don't let another program get him. And hopefully he should succeed with the kind of style of offense that Iowa State does have with Mauser.
Eli Green was a portal guy.
True, yeah. Even though it's
Um,
not really being utilized a lot.
Yeah, same
Austin
with
was a
Alston was a portal
Portal
guy,
guy.
even though he hasn't.
you know
done-
they're capable of going out and getting him at least.
Yeah, yep.
Hopefully they turn out a little bit better than this crop, but how old's what year's Alston? It's hard to bank on him doing anything since he hasn't really
It's kind
seen
of hard
the
to think
field this
about just
year,
because
yeah.
he's really not done anything, you know.
I feel like
I feel like,
gotta be
he-
like
I think
a-
he's a redshirt sophomore this year
Or junior. I feel like junior's sticking out to me right now.
because
but-
I know that he's played in 3 seasons, but there was like a year that he played like 4 games or something. Because I think it was last year he played like 4 games, but still led Army. in
Redshirt
receiving.
junior.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, junior.
Okay. So he'll have 1 more year here.
Hopefully that year is.
They better use
Ja-
him at
oh,
some point.
Jackson,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He'll be
Oh, yeah,
healthy.
Daniel Jackson. you're
Daniel
right, yeah.
Jackson.
Yep.
He's a forgotten name, but
Yeah, just because
he would have been
played
that
this
wide
season,
receiver
yeah.
3 for
He
for
would've-
sure this
he
year.
would-
Oh,
would've.
yeah. I imagine that
But
offense with him.
I don't think he's gonna come back, unfortunately, and use a medical redshirt. I think he's just gonna. I think he was talking about like grad school or something. I heard
Yeah.
from somewhere.
Yeah, because
so.
he was already a redshirt senior this
Right,
year, I guess,
yeah.
and maybe
We'll see,
But
though.
we're getting maybe a little too ahead of ourselves, thinking all about next year now.
I mean, it's something you got to do though.
It sucks
I mean,
that
We
do
are
it
this late in
when-
the season.
The-
when just a couple weeks ago you thought, man,
Right.
it's all about this year.
right.
Mm.
Well, I think the big thing though to consider with that is that Rocco Beck is going to be back.
Mm.
He's proven that he can lead this team. He's a very, sort of like game manager, but like he can make plays when he needs to, and we've seen that throughout this year. And there will for sure be games next year that he's going to have to put the team on his back. Look at the UCF game this year. He made some mistakes. He righted them throughout the game, made some big plays, and they took the win. So
It's gonna be the Rocco show next year.
probably.
Most likely.
I mean, and Sama, Hansen.
Yeah.
Running game should still be solid.
yeah.
Yeah, you do lose Jalen Jackson though. So
Do lose Jalen Jackson.
Yeah.
But then you got Flora,
yeah, Dylan
Yeah.
Lee.
Dylan Lee.
yeah.
They both have touchdowns this year.
I have confidence in the running back development we have going on at this program.
Yep.
I think that's one thing that you can, year after year, you can count on Iowa State having a decent running back room.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just the wide receivers that's really the question mark right now for this team next year.
And
which-
even in the wide receiver room, it seems like we always have someone, Like going back to Alan Lazard through, it
Hakeem
feels like
Butler.
every year Hakeem
Hakeem,
Butler,
Xavier Hutchinson.
and with they'll find someone.
Yeah. There's always just someone who always rises up, so it shouldn't be a problem.
So we can take our minds off the Kansas loss. It happened. The game's over. Now we move on to Cincinnati. It's going to be Saturday, 7 p.m. on Fox. Also at Jack Trice Stadium for those of you who are going to the game or thinking about going to the game.
You should still go.
Yeah.
A lot to play for still.
Yeah, go out, support the team, whatnot. But this Cincinnati team, like Iowa State, is on a 2-game skid. Lost their last 2 games. Well, that's redundant, but lost to Colorado by 11, lost to West Virginia by 7. Overall, this team's 5-4. They've looked good at times. They've looked not good at other times.
They are the mid of the Big 12.
I mean, they're schedule-wise, I mean, it's fairly similar in some of the games to what Iowa State has done. In terms of common opponents, they shut out Houston like Iowa State did. They lost close to Texas Tech like Iowa State did. They survived UCF like Iowa State did, and they beat West Virginia like Iowa State did. So a lot of similarities in terms of some of these results, but that doesn't really tell the entire story of this team.
Yeah, and I have another team like that kind of has been sticking in my head about what Cincy looks like. Is reminding me very much of Texas Tech, like the general overall team. Like especially leading into it, they had 2 straight losses. So then they came into Ames and took us down by 1 point, and now their team, like stats wise, isn't really too different either. I mean, Baron Moore and Brendan Sorsby, both good quarterbacks this year. Corey Kiner, the running back for Cincinnati, hasn't been as good as Taj Brooks has this year, and then even Cincinnati's receivers, I wouldn't say as great as Texas Tech, but still pretty decent. So it's kind of a lot reminding me of this Red Raider team, and it's kind of giving me little flashbacks of 2 weeks ago. I don't know about you guys.
Very similar color scheme as well.
Yeah,
yeah. You just squint your eyes a little bit.
Yeah. Also, the alma mater of star player on the Kansas City Chiefs,
Travis.
Yeah,
Travis Kelce.
Like in Texas Tech, Patrick Mahomes. So.
Oh yeah,
and we just went to Kansas City last weekend. At the Chiefs Stadium.
Chiefs Stadium.
Wow,
3 straight weeks.
Wow. So what you're telling me is this is going to be a loss too.
Probably. Yeah. We'll get to our stat predictions later, Brett. But regardless, Cincinnati. I feel like the main part of this team looking forward to is the return of the former linebacker coach Tyson Veit, now the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bearcats. And he does bring that 3-3-5 defense like John Haycock does. So, I would say offense should be able to thrive just because, he has been with the team. He knows what they're probably going to run. It's probably a little bit different things just to try and change it up. But still, too, you've played it a lot, and you should be able to – and you practiced against a 3-3-5 defense. So I feel like this is going to be one of those big games for this Iowa State offense.
No, and this Cincinnati team, they played West Virginia last week. They lost. But if you look at the numbers – it's almost like I don't know how they possibly could have lost. I didn't watch the game. I'm not going to act like I watched the game. But when you look at the team stats, Cincinnati outgained them by over 150 yards. Yeah. They had double the passing yards, nearly double the rushing yards. I think it must have just been those 3 turnovers, I guess. Probably bad times. But, I mean, on a down-to-down basis, it looked like they should have beat West Virginia.
Kind of comparable to Iowa State's game against Texas Tech.
Very comparable.
Iowa State moved the ball a lot more effectively, had more yards, probably led nearly every stat category except the final score.
Yeah.
And one of those crucial things in that game was the pick 6, which was a very dumb idea by Brendan Sorsby to kind of just lob it up to the defender. It was very Will Levis-esque when he played the Bears, kind of lobbed it up. And although he didn't hit the knees on the ground with his head on his head, oh no moment, but kind of Sorsby kind of did dig themselves into this hole because he did also have 2 fumbles that they lost to, which kind of gave West Virginia that momentum. So it's going to be an interesting day to face the Iowa State defense. We thought they were as stout as they were before, but then you saw what they did against Kansas, and you're doubting them a little bit of their abilities. But still, I feel like this is the perfect get-back game for this team. We kind of talked about how Kansas could be like that just because it's at a neutral site, and Kansas had that 2-6 record, but didn't end up being the case. So I feel like you guys talked about, Cincinnati is one of those like mid-level Big 12 teams right now in terms of what they've done this season, and yeah, especially at home at night, this I feel like could be the perfect time for a bounce-back game.
Yeah, and you can't take any team in the Big 12 lightly, and that's been evident the past 2 weeks for Iowa State. So, I mean, Texas Tech was kind of like on the outskirts of possibly fighting for a Big 12 championship. Kansas was down there near the bottom, but they're a solid team. Cincinnati, they're definitely better than they were last year. They just were not a great team. Iowa State beat them on the road. But I think coming into this game, you've got to look at it from Iowa State's perspective. This is a get-right game for sure.
Must win.
Yeah, pretty much.
You have to, yeah.
But some of the guys who didn't play last week, like you had Malik Verdon. He had that, club hand basically in the Texas Tech game. He didn't play against Kansas. That might have had something to do with maybe those blown coverages. Maybe if he was there, that may not have happened. I'm not entirely saying that would have, but it's just a possibility. Dominique Orange didn't travel with the team to Kansas. So that was another missing piece there. So you've got to wonder if those guys are ready to go. If everyone kind of went throughout the week as a group, like a group type of mentality of like, we need to get back on track. Like, here's what we did wrong. Here's what we need to do to fix it. I feel like Iowa State can win this game.
Yeah, it's very possible. And I feel like what you talked about, this defense really needs that veteran leadership from Bo Freeler and J.R. Singleton, those two captains. So I think, like you said, like I feel like this could be a very good opportunity to bounce back. And I feel like it could happen. It just depends on what kind of things Cincinnati throws out and how Iowa State does go out there and perform based off of what they've done in these last two games.
One thing I do like about, I guess, like what a lot of them said after the Kansas game and the post-game press conferences was it's a lot of like we before me type of thing. But when things do go wrong, like they did in the Kansas game, Rocco Becht took accountability for what he did. He said that he needed to play better. Jalen Knoll did the same thing. He's been a vocal guy in the locker room the past couple weeks of talking to the guys and, telling them like we as a group have to be better. Bo Freeler said that he's got to be a better leader for this team. J.R. Singleton said that he didn't play his best against Kansas. And then Matt Campbell said that it's on him because he's the head coach. So I like that this team doesn't blame anybody else. Everyone recognizes what they need to work on and how to get better. So I think that that's a good way to build your program. It's good that they have players like that because if they're blaming each other, this team is not 7-2. They're probably 2-7 at this point.
100%. It's good to see that accountability like you kind of talked about. We're not blaming each other here. Like, this isn't a dysfunctional team. This is a oiled team. I feel like it's a very experienced group now through 9 games now?
Yep.
Yeah, and now I feel like this is a perfect time. And you see what's at stake this weekend, because right now if you look at the Big 12 standings, obviously BYU is probably going to be untouched. They're going to probably stay undefeated, go to the Big 12 championship game and this college football playoff. But then you see Colorado sits in second place right now with the 5-0 record, and they have to host Utah. So you kind of hope the Utes can upset them in Boulder. And then obviously Arizona State's above Iowa State right now in third place, but they have to go to Kansas State. So I feel like you kind of want the Wildcats to win right there, so that way you could beat the Wildcats at home for the last game of the season, which could end up being for the Big 12 championship game. So a lot of mix and match right here in terms of the Big 12 standings if they want to have a chance to still reach those greater heights.
Yeah, I mean, they still got you. I mean, it sounds very difficult after seeing the last 2 games, but you went out. You've got a fighting chance. I mean, that's like no doubt because it's the Big 12. You're kind of writing off BYU as going undefeated. I don't know. I think they could lose. I think they could lose 2 games. Who knows?
They're playing Kansas this weekend, so
I think Kansas could beat them.
Even if it's in Provo. So
I mean, they should have lost.
Momentum.
They do. I mean, Kansas is it.
They're fighting for their lives to make a bowl game, so they kind of have to win out.
I mean, it's in this league, anything can happen.
Technically, Houston still could make the Big 12 championship game.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think that'll happen.
No, I was saying like in terms of chances. Like I think Kansas still make it, but UCF, Utah, Arizona, Oklahoma State's so funny.
There's such a cluster at like 4-2 in this conference. It's insane.
Oklahoma State hasn't won a single game conference this year. I wish we played them just because of the fact that they are not playing good in the conference this year. But nonetheless, like you talked about, Kane, this is all in front of them right now. Like this is going to be a huge weekend of college football in the Big 12 right now, just because of the seismic shifts that could happen within this conference.
Man, I'm sorry. This is a little off topic. Just before the season, if you would have told me that the bottom 4 teams in the Big 12 would have been Oklahoma State, Utah, Arizona, and UCF. Oh, bottom 5 plus Kansas, I just called you crazy. Those would have been 5 of my top probably 7 teams. I think.
Yeah, I feel like.
I mean, obviously take injuries into account with Cam Rising and stuff like that, but
replace Kansas State with Kansas or replace Kansas with Kansas State. That would have probably been my top 5 preseason.
It's just it's crazy.
Yep.
Oklahoma State has not won a Big 12 game,
and they were my pick to win the Big 12.
Utah and Oklahoma State were the 2 picks. I mean, Kansas State obviously was the 3rd one probably in there, but I mean, remember how big that we thought that game was in what? Week 3.
Yep. Yeah, we were very
turns
early.
out to not matter.
Turns out that was the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
Just because they finished out non-conference undefeated, and you're like, you know what? I think that could happen, and then never mind.
Yeah, it was just a prank, guys. I had Oklahoma State winning last place.
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah. You kind of misheard me saying about Utah too.
Yeah.
nonetheless, I'm excited about this weekend's game. I don't know about you guys, but it should be a fun one to watch.
Yeah. I mean, anytime that you're back in Jack Trice Stadium, it's always a good time. Crowd should be pretty solid, I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the fans would want to support the team because, I mean, it's like we've talked about. It's such a get-right game that they're going to need the support of the fans in this one for sure.
Yeah, and against Kansas State if they do beat Cincinnati. And
true.
And they go to Salt Lake City and beat Utah, because that's probably the game of the year right there if the standings fall in their favor of what could happen. Because it seems like from right now, because they lost to Texas Tech and Kansas, that Kansas State will be a must-win game if they want to make the Big 12 championship game, because if they don't, they'll need a lot to go right for them to make that game. So
every game's a must-win to make the Big 12 championship.
They can't afford another loss.
No.
Another loss would be an unreal. They really just can't.
They already need teams to lose anyway. Like, they need Colorado to lose.
They might need Colorado to lose twice.
Probably.
I don't know. The tiebreakers are going to be so funky if it ends up being like 5, 6, and 2 teams at the end of the season.
Yeah, that loss to Texas Tech didn't help either because
you think about switching that game too, and it's like,
right,
where are we in the season? Like, still lose to Kansas, like we can still probably lose to Kansas State and make the Big 12 championship game, And it just makes me wonder, just because of the fact that it's just the way it ended, man. Like, the UCF one looked like a loss, but they came up from nowhere and took the win out of the jaws of defeat, and now Texas Tech kind of was like the one that should have happened in the UCF game, is kind of just like switched, so and then Kansas kind of snowballed. So
they probably do need Colorado to lose twice, because Colorado beat Texas Tech.
We needed that to happen,
but
though. If Tech would have won, then they would have a tiebreaker.
Right, but Texas Tech beat Iowa State, so it's like
Tech won't be a problem, I think, just because of the fact that they're...
If Iowa State beats Kansas State beat Colorado. It's going to be
Colorado to lose again.
It's going to be a mess.
They have to go to Kansas, so that maybe that could happen. Because
honestly, Kansas could go on a generational run. They've got a lot of ranked teams.
If Kansas goes 3-0 they could get the Iowa State Cyclones back in the Big 12 title.
They make a bowl game, and they get Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. It's a win-win
for everybody.
Yeah. They need to have like a Big 12 standing simulator. I can just find all the ways Iowa State can make it.
Just
play the video game, that can simulate that for you.
True. See what College Football 25 thinks will happen.
True. Yeah, because you see the final 3 games for Colorado. I'm going to list them out. So hosting Utah, at Kansas, hosting Oklahoma State, who hasn't won a Big 12 game.
I think they go 2-1 and lose to Kansas.
Yeah. Or I think 2-1 lose to Utah, because I feel like Utah's fighting for their lives right now to try and make something happen. They're on a 4 or 5 game losing streak.
It's a lot.
One of them, yeah.
It's a lot.
One of them. At least 4, most 5. So,
but
regardless, they need this win against Colorado, which... Who knows if it'll happen, just because Colorado's kind of on the up and up right now, sadly.
For Kansas, though, they played Iowa State when they were ranked. They've got BYU, who's ranked. They've got Colorado, who's ranked. And then you finish with Baylor, who's actually kind of on the up and up right now, I'd say. So it's a tough road for them to finish out. But with the way that they've been playing, if they can keep that up, Kansas could definitely make some noise. And, they could definitely screw a lot of teams over.
And
I think it'd be funny.
BYU could lose 2 games. I'm looking at it right now. They could easily.
Well, who do they play?
Kansas.
Yeah.
Arizona State.
Possibly.
Houston.
Ooh.
I think BYU's pretty good. I don't see them losing 2 games. I think they will drop one though. I think they will drop one.
I think it's probably at Arizona State, because they haven't lost a game at home this year. They're undefeated. So
if Arizona State gets that win, what does that do?
I feel like
there's so much going.
I think that game hinges on if Cam Scatterbo plays, just because of what he's done for the Sun Devil team. And
honestly, we're just going to start reading schedules.
Honestly,
who does Arizona State have down the stretch?
This is the playoff predictor right here.
So let me pitch something to you guys.
Okay,
so we've got super conferences now, right?
Yeah.
So the fact is that you only play half of the teams in your conference every year.
Mm-hmm.
What if? Hear me out on this.
Okay.
We've got 4 power conferences, right? What if you just take the top 4 teams from each conference and have a 16-team college football playoff?
Because the Big 10 and the SEC would whine, saying,
"Well, I know, but
you guys."
I know money runs everything, but just as a hypothetical, I feel like that would be cool, because then you could section it off. Here's our Big 12 quadrant, here's our SEC quadrant, Big 10 and ACC as well, and then. You
almost play a internalized conference playoff to get down to the top team in each conference, and then it's then you got the 4-team playoff kind of again.
Yep, because a lot of the teams at the top may not end up playing each other, and there's like stupid tiebreakers that would have to happen. That way you could ensure that you are having, every team up there gets a chance, especially if there is a tied record and there's like teams that didn't end up playing each other head to head.
It sounds like a great idea, but the Big Ten and SEC would never go for it.
They wouldn't.
Unfortunately, they run the sport at this point.
At what point does the group of 5 just make their own?
I think that's coming. I think that's coming sooner than later.
It should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be like FBS. Then like they're going to be group of 5 is going to be somewhere between FCS and FBS. Power 4. Maybe the Big 12 will have
just because those schools have been
Oregon.
stuck in limbo forever.
Yeah,
unless you're like the select few, like BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, SMU, that did get called up. Like, I mean, you're just stuck.
And then Boise State just get to the new Pac-12. They already. We're taking the Pac-12 in that scenario.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
With all those Mountain
West.
West
Pretty much
schools.
just the Mountain West.
I
I want Boise State, though.
It's the Mountain North. It's the Mountain Northwest right now.
Yeah.
After the whole BYU Utah situation with that, can we please replace Utah with Boise State in the Big 12? Please, please.
Oh.
Can we just get the free win in Salt Lake City just because of what Utah did?
Please,
please.
Dude, just kick Utah out. I mean,
at this point,
their athletic director irks me. Their fans irk me.
They think they're above
Utah
the Big 12.
irks me. Yeah, you were supposed to run this league, and now you're here with 4 wins.
One win in the league.
Right.
And don't come
Stop.
to me about your 28-year-old quarterback not playing. He shouldn't be playing anyway.
Right.
he should be at a full-time job right now.
Bro should just put the fries in the bag.
Real. Yeah. And now we have to go to Utah with their fans, with their AD, and with just everything.
I thought we got rid of Texas. Looks like we replaced them, and they're called Utah.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're calling out beefs, I can tie this back to the Cincinnati game
Okay.
since we've gotten a little off track.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Let's.
Did you see what their head coach Scott Satterfield said about our precious grass turf?
Oh, yeah. He called it bad and that people slip on it a lot.
He said it's one of the worst surfaces to play on in the country.
I saw Hawkeye fans that were like, you're wrong. Iowa State's field is good.
It's just unquestionably wrong.
I know.
That's the wrong. You're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion is wrong.
Pavlo can attest to this because we were there. Iowa State's field is hands down 10, 20 times better than the field conditions at Arrowhead Stadium.
100%.
It's bad over there.
It was
bad.
horrible. And you think the Kansas City Chiefs, who won 2 consecutive Super Bowls, play on that turf too.
I know.
And they've still sadly undefeated after this Sunday, but still that turf was just unbelievably horrible. I did not expect that from the NFL stadium. I know Arrowhead
real
itself.
grass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just worn out. There was just dirt patches that we could see, spotty, just not what I would expect from an NFL team.
Yeah, and Arrowhead itself was just kind of outdated. The big scoreboards on the sides of the end zones, are very small. They're just the giant ovals. You'd think you'd have a bigger square screen to have your fans be able to see, but
the scoreboards are terrible.
Yeah, that stadium's just very outdated and needs an upgrade, and I can see why they're trying to think of maybe moving the team somewhere else or building a new stadium, because that's definitely a must need for that caliber of team, just the Chiefs, but still, yeah, hands down, like you said, the Cyclones turf is so much better than whatever Kansas had to play on, or whatever they had to play on this past Saturday.
Yeah. And Satterfield has the audacity to say
he's just trying to come up with excuses right now.
When you say stuff like that, the team's going to take that into account. Maybe.
I
mean, fans will take it into account. So that could spark something under the team, make them play harder, make them go out there.
Watch this game's a blowout just from what Satterfield said on this turf.
That'd be funny. Well, also, I'm blanking on his name, the defensive coordinator.
Tyson Veit.
Him, yeah. Being that he was at Iowa State before, I feel like Mauser could scheme something up that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And he can,
I mean, he played 3-3-5 every day in practice.
Right, yeah. He can shred that Cincinnati defense.
Because one of those things, you're kind of challenging each other. You know what Mauser has run so far, but he's probably going to mix it up because he's going to run. And in the same way for Mauser, he knows what kind of defense the 3-3-5 he's going to have, but he's going to kind of mix up his coverages just because he's going to expect. So it's going to be a battle of coordinators right there, and I'm excited to see what they kind of mix up for each other.
And it feels like this is a game that you'd want him to mix it up, to try and, throw something new into the playbook, because 2 losses in a row, we've seen kind of the same stuff week after week now. I think it's time to open up the playbook finally. This is the week to do it.
I'll see some more deeper passes. I know that. I know Rocco always finds Jalen Noel down the field a lot for those deep passes regardless, but still, like, I want to see more of, like, that North Dakota game, like, right off the bat, those type of plays, like, just explosive right away off the gate, just to get the team jolted. I know Iowa State did score first against Kansas, but still it didn't matter in the end. But, just kind of like what you said, more explosive plays is what this team really needs the most to kind of not only motivate the offense, but to motivate that defense to go out there and make big stops, just to get that offense back out there and continue to put it on a familiar Bearcats team, because they played them last year. So,
let's hop into score predictions real quick.
Ooh.
Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay. See you, kid.
I'm gonna predict them to win still.
Iowa State.
I haven't predicted them to lose. I feel like it'd almost be too easy to predict them to lose this one.
Yeah.
I do think that the defense is probably going to struggle a little bit again, but I think Kansas has a little bit more firepower in offense that maybe could take advantage. That's why I think Cincinnati won't score quite as much, even though the defense will struggle. So I think Kansas does have a lot of firepower that Cincinnati might not have. Quite. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, though, still. I'm thinking 31-28 Iowa State.
Didn't you say that for Kansas?
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute.
In game picks, I convinced myself that Iowa State was going to win in a blowout, and that didn't work out. So we'll see.
About that, yeah.
We'll see how I actually feel come tomorrow for game picks, but that's my early lean right now.
Yeah, stat picks will be out later this week, obviously, but this is kind of like the initial, like, what we think as of this moment.
Just a lean.
Yeah, kind of a lean. Yeah.
Lean.
Yeah.
Iowa State 10-point favorites, by the way. 10-point favorites.
Yeah,
something to consider, yeah.
I'll stick with that. I think that knowing everything that's going into this game, you lost last time at home. You've lost 2 in a row. You're going against a familiar face who's coming back to Ames. They insulted the turf. You can't insult the turf and beat the team. Give me the Cyclones. I think it's close. It's high scoring, much like the Kansas game, except I think instead of a team pulling out, getting a huge lead, Iowa State's going to keep it close. Give me the Cyclones in this one. Let's go 37-34.
Damn.
Close.
High score.
2 3-point games. That's kind of interesting, yeah. What I did find out interesting was Iowa State opened up -8, but now it's -10. So, you know what? Let's see here. Give me 45-30 Iowa State.
Okay. Big bounce back for the Cyclones from Hovland.
So we're all taking Iowa State to bounce back.
God, they're going to lose.
No.
Probably. I wouldn't be shocked. But we'll find out on Saturday, 7 p.m., Jack Trice Stadium. Game's going to be on Fox. Go if you can. If you can't, that's where to watch it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time after the Cincinnati game. See you later.